Hello. Today's guests are a couple of good friends of mine, Mark Anderson, who is a classical guitar player based out of Chicago, and Erik Anderson, also a guitar player, but a couple of years ago took a pretty dramatic career path change to pursue medicine and is now working on an MD PhD. If you like my content, like, subscribe, or leave a comment below. And if you like my content generally, please consider contributing to my Patreon account listed below as well. Welcome to Music in Mind with Anthony Caulkins. Hi guys.
Hi, Anthony.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
So I'm Anthony Caulkins, and I'm with a couple of good friends of mine, Erik Anderson and Mark Anderson, both guitar players, except one of them.
Yeah, I quit. We'll get that out right away.
Yeah, you quit.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
I didn't realize, I've known Anthony for 8 years. I didn't realize, or 9 years, I didn't realize it's Caulkins. I always said Caulkins.
Oh.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
we heard you pronouncing
I
it.
feel like an idiot.
Just now? you like you had a panic?
Yes, a little
You're like, oh,
Did
shit.
you see it? Anyway, I apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So,
Glad we got that out of the way.
yeah. All right,
Yep.
so what have you guys been up to?
I already talked.
All right, well, here, let's start with Erik. 'Cause,
Oh,
it was a
God.
good
Okay, well, I
introduction.
just learned that your name's Caulkins,
Yeah.
you know. No. So I'm currently in medical school, and I still play a little bit of music, but I went to UW-Madison with Anthony. We were both in the guitar program there. Here. And
UW-Madison.
yes, in all its
On
glory.
location.
So that's how we met. And so after I left college, I was playing a lot of. I cut my nails. I was a classical guitar. Cut my nails. Was playing a lot of steel string, and came out with albums. Shout out to myself, Son of Anders, on Spotify and Apple Music.
Yeah.
But anyway, but now I really don't play much. I was doing a little bit of like Barrios, La Catedral, and all that fun stuff just to keep it up. But I've been playing more piano now than really
Cool.
guitar.
Do you have a piano?
Yeah, just got an electric piano,
Sweet.
and trying to work my way through the well-tempered clavier,
Wow.
one thing at a time. I want to be Glenn Gould. So
Okay.
I figure it's never too late, right?
Yeah, you just got to play cross-legged.
Yeah,
Sing while you play.
of course.
Of course. Yeah. Cool.
So that's what I've been doing.
So I finished a master's in music a couple of years ago, and I have sort of ambivalent feelings about the whole thing, music in the university in general.
Sure.
So I feel like we've talked a little bit about it, and
Yeah.
we've talked about misgivings and stuff like that. So what made you want to switch from music to medical school?
Yeah. Well, you told me sort of that we were going to get into this before, and so I thought about it, and I was like, should I be completely honest, or should I? Because I sugarcoated it a little bit, because I obviously talked about it in my apps.
Also, just as a side note, I can edit out anything.
No, it's fine. I'm going to come off as a douche anyway, so okay. I can't edit it out. Like if I'm being completely honest, I felt like I put a ton of time into classical guitar. I mean, Mark's classical guitarist as well taught me most of what I know. We would talk for hours about just technique and intricacies, and same with us. I mean, and then you just go and like there'd be 10 people at the concert, and it's just I got kind of tired of not having all of my work. All the work that you put into something is just like the appreciation.
Yep.
I'm sure there's lots of musicians out there who feel this, and I was just like was able to somehow switch that dedication to the practice to just studying. And basically just did that, and also was lucky enough to really have a genuine interest in like biology and chemistry and all the things that you have to take to get into medical school, that I was able to switch gears and basically just change focus and to something that a lot of people appreciate.
Yeah.
So
I don't appreciate medicine.
No, yeah, I mean that's true. There are a lot of doctors get a lot of crap, and for good reason. There's a lot of problems in the industry, but at the end of the day, at least it's easier for people to understand why they should value a doctor than unfortunately why they should value a musician. Yeah. Not saying that, and I think you should value a musician. It's just something I, struggled with and just eventually was like, all right, I'm going to just go this way. And I'm very happy going this way, but there's definitely times where I'm like, dang, I don't play nearly as much music as I used to.
And I miss swear on this?
Yeah.
You could say damn.
Yeah, but I have a reputation to keep as a, anyway. So.
Can I jump in here?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of interesting. Like, I think our generations are brought up to, like follow your dreams, right? And I know a lot of people that say, and I don't know that they're being insincere either, but they say like, this is what I've always wanted to do, like, and they have that like strong passion. I love doing music. I love teaching. I love playing, but I feel like there's probably a lot of things I could have been happy with. And so it's I think sometimes difficult for people to see what like Erik did here and wrap their heads around like, oh, he gave up music and went into medicine. It's why couldn't he be happy doing any number of things?
Right.
I think I could have been. I'm doing music, so I'm gonna probably stick with it. But, that's not to say like this was my calling, and this is what I had to be doing. And then to like backtrack a little further, you were talking about how you guys have had conversations about issues with music in the academy. Yeah. Without giving too much background, should I look at the camera or should I look at you?
Just me is fine.
Okay. Without giving too much background, like my main teaching gigs for the last like 7 years have been adjuncting in universities.
Right.
And now this summer, maybe I shouldn't make this public yet. No, I can make this public, right? I'm still going to be teaching at one of the universities, but I'm leaving one, and I'm adding like 5 mornings a week of teaching preschool music classes.
Yeah.
And part of it's finding the opportunities that present themselves, but part of it is like, honestly, like I have a hard time trying to convince 17 and 18-year-olds and their parents that you should pay this amount of money to come study at this school guitar with me. Yeah, that's a tough sell because it's a weird. Like if I had the chance, I would probably do it over again the same way and go to grad school where I did and pay the money I did and take on the loans that I did. But it's not a great return on investment.
Right.
I'm very satisfied with my life and my career. I love all the teaching I'm doing. I wouldn't be doing the activities I'm doing if I hadn't gone there. And so for me, it's worth the money. But the amount of money that it costs, it doesn't pay back in this field of work.
Right. I mean, it's a weird field of work because, like,
is.
in the medical industry, in theory, you do your work, you get your degree, you do residency, you start working, doing a practical job that you've studied and been trained to do. Versus in music school, to be a professional musician, you don't need a degree. Nobody asks. You just need to be good enough.
You need to be good enough, which I wasn't until I went to grad school.
Right. I mean, there is that. But the degree just helps you teach. Exactly. And so it's just this cycle that keeps going.
Yeah.
And there's this idea, and it's like, it's sort of offensive to music faculty. But the idea that an institute of higher learning, a research institution, has a music department is very weird to me.
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean to have a PhD in music, to be a researcher of music? Because you're not doing research like a scientific researcher. And, like, I don't know.
I thought you are. You do a thesis, right? And you go into the literature. And, I don't know. You're not doing experiments, maybe.
Right. It's just, what does research mean in the context of music?
Here's a question. I don't know the answer to it, but is it different than sort of general humanities research? Like, is it just the difference between the humanities and the hard sciences, or is it even further than that?
I mean, I think it depends. If you're talking about musicologists, it's probably close to a historian or something like that. And I have some misgivings about what research means in that context also, at least in the strictest sense, in terms of, like...
You'd rather be doing medical experiments.
Yes, obviously.
You should call this.
Yeah, right. That's why we're here. I need some
Can we go back
tips.
to the yeast lab?
Yeah. Actually, if I can just... When you were talking, so I don't know if... I can't remember if we said, but we're brothers.
We're brothers.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I didn't
it's
say.
It's okay, if you can't tell. And Mark is 5 years older than me. And we have a sister who's 7 years older than me, 2 years older than Mark, and all of us went in to get music degrees. You know, I did get a music degree, I should say. I didn't completely, quit. I finished it out. I just got another degree as well. But one thing that was a major calculus in my head for why I should leave is looking at them and seeing how much debt they got in.
Right.
I mean, I had the perspective of, thanks to my older siblings.
Value is confusing with music.
Right? It is confusing. And so, I just also, sometimes I forget, but that was a big thing that, made me think, do I want to go in and get a bunch of debt to get a master's and then a PhD so that I can teach? And I know,
Yeah.
Yeah, and teaching doesn't even pay that well.
Right.
So getting out of debt isn't the easiest.
Yeah. But no, to get back to what you're talking about with these, research degrees in music, whatever you want to call it, there is interesting academic work being done in music.
Of course, I agree.
But, it seems like a big part of the foundation of these research centers for music is to be able to give musicians PhDs to then be able to hire them as faculty members, right?
Exactly.
I'll never get a full-time academy job because I don't have my terminal degree.
Right.
Even though, as a performer, my terminal degree should just be the performance degree.
Yeah, of course.
Is, So.
But there isn't a job. You can't go on Indeed.
Well, and the other critical thing that we've talked about that you don't get from music degrees, or maybe you are now, but certainly not when we were in school, is they don't teach you about marketing at all.
I think some do, but I think even programs that do are not great at it.
Some of them are trying more.
But that's such an important part of music that it's
But it's just the machine of higher
Right.
education is so slow, so they're going to be talking about things that are 5-10 years old.
So, I mean, I don't know how current they are, but some schools do have a big emphasis on that. Shout out to Millikan University. They have a pretty robust commercial music and music business program there. And the full-time guitar teacher there, he did his PhD. It was actually in education, and his study was music entrepreneurship programs in universities. And they brought him in because he has this background in teaching entrepreneurship. But it still gets down to this, and he's a very smart guy, a hard worker, good teacher.
Yeah.
But it gets down to this thing of he also hasn't had the type of career that a lot of his graduates will have.
Right.
He studied jazz, and then he had a gig playing with the Marine Corps Jazz Band, which is, a full-time steady performance gig. It's not something that puts you in the same type of entrepreneurial position that freelancing does, which is what a lot of people will do when they get out of school. And so I don't know. I mean, they are running these courses, but now he's also living in Decatur, Illinois, where, you talk about sort of how slow the academy is. Not only that, but how far behind is he going to fall from modern trends?
Yeah.
Because Decatur's kind of an isolated environment. So I don't know. He's still pretty new there, and I don't think he's out of date right now.
Yeah.
But I always kind of wonder about that.
But so is it required of the performance majors to take a music business class then, or is it just they have? That's kind of my point.
That's a good
there's
question,
schools that have music business degrees, and you can go in and do a specialty in that.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of getting the performance majors to learn about marketing, because it's if you're going to be an independent musician, you need to know how to market yourself, as both of you know.
But then there's also programs that I think focus too heavily on it, and it sort of ruins the idea of a space for musicians to work on music.
But even to have one class where they say,
of course.
you need a website, here's how you write an email to a venue, here's how not to write an email to a venue.
Actually, email etiquette is a big thing that we need to focus on, because kids come in nowadays just knowing how to text. So I'll get emails where
LOL.
It's all lowercase. They don't address me in it. It's like,
yep.
What the fuck do you think this is?
I come in with a suit.
What's my name?
Yeah. Mr. Mark.
Was this to me?
Mr. Mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
So kids these days. Am I
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, come on, I'm still 27. Come on.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There.
Am I the old guy
That
now?
Kurt Cobain age. Anyway.
Yeah, cool. So are you performing a lot still?
I'm performing.
Uh-huh. Well, you have a duo, a classical guitar
I have a
duo tandem.
I have a duo. Yeah, I don't know, and I've been trying to be more active about finding other things because, like, with the duo, for our listeners,
Duo tandem.
I live in
tandem.
Chicago, and
Check it out.
Duo tandem.
Yes, the other half of duo tandem, Najati, he lives in London, so logistically, our performances are sort of hard to schedule. So like we don't perform, like every week or something. And so I've been trying to find more solo things. I'm doing a couple things with some singers coming up. I did some gigs with our sister about a month ago. I've been finding. We did a gig.
I mean the Anderson holiday.
Oh yeah. No, so I mean, I've been trying to find more stuff. Like I look at people like you that are very active, just kind of playing a lot.
Yeah.
I think, I know how to play guitar. Like
It's true, but I get
maybe-
really burned out too on playing other people's stuff.
Oh sure, yeah. Most of the gigs I do are things I want to play.
Right.
One thing I've been doing for the last 6 months or so, there's an organization called Group Muse.
Yeah.
You familiar with them?
Yep.
So I've done, I think, 6 house concerts with them, which has been fun. Because again, you get to plan your program.
Do you see Group Muse as being something that might become bigger, take off more, or do you think it'll kind of stay at the...
In what way do you mean take off? In terms of like just the amount that it's going on, or in terms of the income potential?
Either, both. I don't know. I think it's a good way for classical musicians and non-standard form, like not pop music, to be able to get out and perform. Because I remember when I was in school here playing classical guitar, even the idea of trying to get out and gig was a little bit confusing as to what that would mean, and like, you don't always want to play coffee shops. And
it still is.
Yeah.
To go on a quick tangent, we watched a documentary about Robin Williams, and like talking about his early days of just doing stand-up like every night, all these different sets, and the way you really sort of hone your craft. And I'm thinking about it in terms of also the way you hone your stage presence. You know?
Learning how to communicate.
The ability to get up in front of people. And like I think I've got a much better feel for that now, but I think it still takes me a while to warm up. And I was thinking, man, if I could just play more, I could work on this element. But then I'm thinking like, well, how do I book, weekly classical guitar gigs?
Yeah.
That's hard. So Group Muse I've been able to do roughly once a month, which has been nice.
And also the fact that it's potentially paid.
Yeah, I mean, I've made money at all of them, but the amount of money is pretty variable based on how many people are there,
But I think what it does is it allows you to have, to start to value your own performance too, because it's a big problem if you're just doing coffee shop gigs where there's no pay and you've asked to play there. The idea of value is you're putting in everything and getting almost nothing out of it.
Right, yeah.
And so I think it's important to have those
areas
for people to get the value feedback.
Group Muse is cool because not only do you make some money off of it, but because it's not like just a coffee shop or something. Like it's somewhere where people are there to hear you play.
Yeah.
So you get just a lot of like the audience interaction for me has always been very positive and strong at Group Muse events. Because they're there to hear you play, because it's an intimate setting where there is no sort of barrier between you, so the interaction is very free and open. And then because it's been mostly for me audiences that are not typical classical music listeners. So I get to sort of introduce them to that, and I get to bring them into that world of something different for them. And so it's always been a very positive experience in that regard. So I've really liked them. In Chicago, it's been very slow going. Like in the fall, the founders flew in to do some kickoff events, and they hired somebody to do audience outreach, like a a part-time employee in the city. And they were saying in New York and Boston, like there's group music going on every night.
Yeah.
And it just sort of went. I don't know how active it is in LA, but they said it really took off just through word of mouth, just on their own. They didn't have to do anything. But it's also not a perfect system. I mean, for someone like you, they stipulate, and I think when you try to get a gig, unless you set it up with a host specifically, if you the way it works is like you can reach out to hosts and organize something, or hosts will say, I want to do an event, and then as a musician in their system, you'll get an email and you can submit a program.
Yeah.
And I think it's them who submit the programs, and they specifically say, like, your program must include at least 50% standard classical repertoire.
Wow.
And I don't know how they determine that. And as a guitarist, I look at that and I say, well, here's all these composers that if you don't know guitar music, you've probably never heard of.
Right.
How are you judging my program?
Yeah.
What does classical mean?
And, what if you want to put your own compositions out? By the way, you had a composition performed in Chicago recently.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I was not able to make it to that one.
Caulkins.
Yeah. Yes.
Duo for bass and guitar.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's true. Yeah.
Liz Clausen, Eric.
Yep.
Gibble.
Yeah.
Sorry, Eric. Fellow Eric.
Yeah.
You're real good with names.
I'm
aren't you?
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Son of Anders. Son of Anders.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're like the hype man.
I'm plugging everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll put links. They'll
Yeah.
all be there.
But no, I mean it's. So I don't know how they navigate that.
Yeah.
In terms of, they don't give a space necessarily, at least on the face. They don't give a space for somebody who's trying to do something different.
Right. Yeah.
And to an extent that's fine. Like they created this platform. They decided this is our identity. They have every right to do that.
Right.
And sometimes the more clear you can make the identity, the easier it is to
of course.
get people on board. So, that's totally fine. But it does have its limits.
Yeah.
I don't know how they'd feel about you saying I want to do something with electronics. I don't know if they'd be into that.
Yeah.
Again, I think if you find a host and then you guys coordinate it through the platform, I don't think they tell you no, you can't do it.
Right.
They don't seem that. I don't think they're trying to be assholes about it.
Right. Yeah.
I think they just, again, they have sort of, this is our thing.
Yeah.
So
It's weird to think of like scenes and stuff and how they're created like that.
yeah, no, I don't know.
I mean, because it seems like trying to build sort of a classical music scene in sort of a salon style, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's a cool idea, and it's I think for a lot of people it's a nicer way to hear classical music as opposed to going downtown to the symphony.
Well, it's connected at least.
It's connected.
It's not a bunch of old people listening to music they don't care about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like Chicago has a scene for classical music?
I don't know. I'm not very
very
well
hip?
connected. No, and case in point, I was just looking up.
Well, they have a classical revolution.
I was just on Instagram.
Nice.
Shout
out to Instagram.
A post of a friend of mine, a guitarist, Nanai Fujiwara, popped up, and I was just looking back. I don't go on Instagram often enough, and so I was scrolling back through her old posts, and I saw one. Apparently, a month ago, we had the inaugural Chicago Classical Guitar Festival. I had no idea. Nobody told me.
What?
So I don't know what's going on in my city.
Well, I'm sorry.
Did you know about it?
I don't think so.
Did they tell you? Did
Yeah,
you
yeah.
get the memo?
Yeah.
My invite was lost in the mail.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. So I'm not very well connected. I probably should be more so. I know there's the Chicago Symphony is very well regarded.
Yeah, of course.
We have opera.
Yeah.
But that begs the question of, I no idea how they marketed that, but who knows? Like maybe they didn't market it well enough too. It might not necessarily be on you.
Musicians are notoriously terrible at
Yeah.
this, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I saw an interesting argument on Facebook the other day on some LA musicians thing, and it was somebody trying to take down promoters. So there's this system, I mean, it's probably everywhere, but like
Yeah.
every now and then I'll get contacted by people who are trying to,
Promote.
well, not promoters, bookers actually. So they're like, just, you buy 30 tickets ahead of time and then you sell them to your own show.
Right.
And then if not, you just eat the cost. And then in exchange, you get to play at these places.
Yeah.
And it's this thing, and it's taking over like the entire LA live music scene.
Yeah, you were telling me
Yeah, I
about
hate
that.
those.
Yeah, it's so annoying. And so the argument was just like, well, why would anybody pay bookers to not do any, just
So
like
not book.
right? So they've like set it up something you could do with an email, and then you're having to buy tickets to your own show.
Right. No, and it's like if I want to, I can go out and hire a venue, and effectively I'm doing that.
Right.
And then I have total control over it.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I just do that if I want to spend the money?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But it's also hard on the other end to try and build value for yourself, build
Right.
an audience.
no, it's very hard. Najat and I have been talking about that. We've done a lot of performances in the last couple of years where we hire the venue,
Right.
and it's great in terms of being able to put on our production the way we
Mhm.
want to. But it's not good for building an audience because you're going to invite people, and it's going to be the people you know.
Exactly.
It's not going to be new people that you can bring into your world.
Yeah.
So it's really challenging for audience building, unless you're a really savvy marketer, which we're not.
Yeah.
Seems like one of the best ways that people get audience these days are with podcasts. too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, am I going to
so-
get new fans?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, it's something
At least for comedians.
because we've all talked about comedians a lot,
Mhm.
and like we went to the Comedy Store in Los
Yeah.
Angeles, and I really like that model, and I wish there was something like that for musicians to.
Oh yeah.
So professional
and-
level
yeah.
musicians, they get passed at a venue and they get to do 15 minutes or
Mhm.
something like that. Short sets all the time with new audiences.
How hard would it be to set that up?
I don't know. I've thought
Like,
about
particularly
it. Like
with-
getting a business loan or something.
Particularly with like music schools, right?
Yeah.
You get the students to come in. It gives them a platform to hone their craft. It gives you a product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But who would go out to that? I wonder.
Well, I
you
don't
have
know.
the right
I think you
people,
need to
people
build
will-
this. Like the Comedy Store has a thing that's been built up around it. It has a name. This is
What-
why I'm curious about scenes. Like it's an interesting idea of how they exist.
What's the economic model of that? Do the comedians make?
Very little.
And so they just know. I mean, I'm only doing 15 minutes, so I can't
Yeah.
expect to make $100 or something.
I mean, they might make I don't know what
Maybe
they
if
make, but I
you
don't think that's the
command a
big
good
money
rate.
maker for them. I think it's a workout spot.
Yeah, I mean when they're talking about in the Robin Williams documentary, I mean he was talking about going around LA and doing 6 sets a night, but
Huh.
it's like 15-minute
So-
spots,
Yeah.
And you
So-
can do that, but you got to go. Like, I probably performed most in my time between that I took off.
Right.
I was in Washington
open
D.C. and I just went
Open
to a
mics,
bunch of
yeah.
open mics in D.C.
Yeah.
And you could do that.
Is that the equivalent of it?
I think it is.
I think it's the equivalent of starting. What I'm saying
Yeah.
is something at the professional level, because there's
Sure.
open mics for
That's
comedians
true.
too, and so you can
Right.
start on that circuit. But something that allows emerging musicians.
But this is the issue.
There's
It's like,
nothing.
what music are you playing? It's like there's different there's more venues for certain types of music than there
Right,
are
of
others.
course, that's true.
Yeah, is there what's the corollary here with comedy? Like, because when I think about comedy, the different types I think about are you've got sketch, you've got improv, you've
Right.
got stand-up,
Yeah.
right? Within music, we then talk about different genres.
It's true.
Jazz,
And then even within
classical.
genres, there's different
Rock.
clubs that attract different types of
Folk.
comedy.
Right. I mean, would it have to be genre-centric where people know you're going to...
It could be a range, I think.
For
I think
15
you
minutes
could do
sets,
it-
the thing you can't have is somebody who's going to take 20 minutes to set up, right?
Right, exactly. no, but I think you could have a range of like
Mm-hmm.
most types allowing for a certain degree of experimentation in a number of directions.
Sure.
Like even at the Comedy Store, when we said that there's sort of a number of different types of comedians. Some are storytellers, some
Right.
do kind of dark, introspective comedy.
Yeah. And you get a range of it when you're there.
Right, and it's not a total range. Like there's totally different comedy clubs that exist,
Right.
but you get sort of a spectrum of standard stand-up that can
Yeah.
be fairly experimental.
So, what's the barrier for entry as a comedian to that scene?
It gets pretty high.
Yeah, I mean, at the Comedy Store specifically, I don't know, but I think you have to audition and pass to be allowed to play there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I think that's a
wonder-
good barrier even for this kind of setup, especially if it's at like emerging level. So
Yeah, you want it. I mean, obviously, you need it to be accessible because you need. I mean, how many people do you have a night? You can have 10 people a night.
right.
So you need to have bodies, right? You need warm bodies to plop on that stage. But
And in those seats.
but yeah, if you want to distinguish it from the open mic scene, it can't be a complete amateur hour, right?
Right. It has to be pro level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also took years for the Comedy Store to get to where it
get to
is.
that.
It went through
Yeah,
a bunch
of
of like low times,
yeah.
you know, in the 90s or whatever. And we just happen to be in a boom right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, I don't know.
But as a model for building a scene,
Yeah, no, I think it's a
building,
good
and it builds
idea.
a community for comedians.
Yeah,
to-
and I imagine that there exists something like that in like New York. I mean, you could argue that
Sure.
there's jazz clubs that basically have that model.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the one that, you know, one of our friends works at in New York is sort of like that.
It's like that in that they're active every night. It's not like that in that it's not a
15 minutes.
it's
and
not a
off.
Like a
rotating
workout
cast.
club.
Yeah,
But
it's
you'll
not a
have maybe
workout
2
club.
people. I mean, most venues work in that they'll have a couple acts, right?
At jazz clubs too.
I think so.
The ones in Chicago don't, but it could be.
It's just
different
one
here.
person. There's not even an opener.
I mean, because for jazz, you know, you'll sit up there, you'll do 3 sets, you're calling tunes all night. Like that's the whole thing about jazz is it's not like if I prepared a,
Sure.
4-hour night of classical guitar,
Right.
you know.
Well, there brings in
Wow,
another
classical
interesting.
guitar. Oh my god, 4
Yeah.
hours. I would want some non-classical guitar in there.
Right.
I don't think I could handle that as an audience.
I couldn't either, and I'm a classical
like-
guitarist, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we need a workout club. Like we need to be better on stage.
So you,
Well,
and then you learn
but
your material. You can
Classical
try it in different
Revolution
ways.
is that.
Yeah, it's
you
it's
know?
trying.
Yeah,
It's
it's
just not a
just not
set venue,
active.
and it's not a. Oh, I don't know if it's active, but it's not a set
But
venue.
yeah, I mean the pop-up nature I think is a place to start, as long as it goes somewhere. But I think even having a physical location to build the physical scene, like the
Yeah.
Comedy Store in Hollywood or
Right.
the Comedy Cellar in Manhattan.
Because the challenge that Classical Revolution has, at least in Chicago, is that first of all, they're very inactive. All I ever see is Boxing Day and maybe one other thing the rest of the year, and it's only the musicians that are
Right.
playing that go.
Yeah.
That's not a scene.
No, that's just buddies
That's like,
playing.
hey, hey guys, why don't you come over and we'll play for each other,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and here's another issue: is like I feel like there's notorious. We talk about notorious musicians. By that, just the stereotype or maybe the generalization, but I feel like you also don't have a lot of musicians wanting to organize these things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's true. And I think the other thing also is like,
'Cause we're sold that it's a higher art thing.
so
Class.
in
Right,
Classical
yeah, yeah.
Revolution, I don't know about you, maybe it's just me because I'm uncomfortable, but I felt like like it was it was all people that knew each other, and I was the outsider, and I couldn't really break into that bubble, Whereas if it has an actual audience that's there, the break into the bubble is not. You don't have to impress the people that may or may not want to let you in. You impress the audience, and
Right.
you're in the bubble,
Yeah.
and that's really the way it should be. It doesn't matter like
And then you with the other people have a common goal.
yes,
You're all there to do a show for an audience. You're
Right.
not there. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
supposed to jerk off in front of each other.
But I think that also builds community.
Of course.
She
How could
doesn't
it
like.
not?
Right, yeah. Yeah, vulnerable. You know.
Should we build some community right now? Turn off the camera.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the biggest hindrance is you just don't have a lot of people who want to organize it because we get into this craft because we're really good at doing one thing
Right.
and not anything else, and we hone that one skill.
Yep.
And it's just you get out of school, you got $80,000 in debt, just throwing that number out, and you don't know how to do anything. You have to learn everything
Yeah.
at that point. You know how to actually make a business out of it. And,
All right. Well, I want to do this. How are we going to do this?
you guys talk. I'm out, man.
Yeah, you're leaving.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
Wait. We can incorporate medical. Things
Okay,
there.
cool,
It'll be the
okay.
music and medical
Yes,
store.
Good.
Yeah.
And you can
I will have the
you can have
bacteria
workout
soon.
sets. You can
Yeah.
try some new things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Now you're
The
interested.
gynecologist walked into a bar.
Jeez. Yeah.
No.
I don't know.
All right. Well, what kind of
I don't
medical
know.
person?
I'm
are you
not
gonna
the
be?
doctor.
Do I want to be? I don't know. I mean, as you know, I'm doing it mostly for the research side,
Right.
so probably just be an internist of some kind and go into
Talk about pathology.
pathology is interesting.
What's been drawing you to that?
Because it pairs the best, or it doesn't pair the best, but it pairs well. I'm doing a PhD as well. So I'm going to be getting, I'm going to be in a lab for a long
You
time.
can be doctor.
I'll be doctor, and it's just, it's something that goes well. Surgery doesn't go well with an MD PhD because the training to become a surgeon is so
Right.
long, and
That
then
makes
you
sense.
get really good. Much like a musician, you get very good at doing like a couple procedures.
Yeah.
And whereas pathology is something, for those who don't know, it's like a pathologist is going to be the person who looks at the biopsy when you get something, or you're going to look at the slides. And so there's a lot of room for research in there because,
Interesting.
you learn more about maybe cell biology,
Yeah.
and you can kind of go down rabbit holes like that. So I don't know, but some general specialty is the best thing to do with a PhD because it opens up the
But a
world.
general specialty.
Like an internal medicine, like an internist, like
a good
internal
point.
medicine, oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. See?
But there are more
That's a good
general
one.
specialties. I know it
Okay.
sounds like an
What about a
oxymoron.
special specialty?
Special specialty would be like surgery, like you're an orthopedic surgeon, you
You only do
specialize,
surgery on the big toe.
or the shoulder or
I
something
had
like that.
surgery on my big toe.
Okay. Did you go to a special specialist?
No.
Or a general
Just a
specialist?
general specialist.
Well, anyway. Yeah, so I don't know, but
Yeah.
I don't have to go into that because I know this is a music podcast, but
Yeah, what the fuck?
you asked, man.
Wait, maybe you can talk about the mind.
I'll talk about Son of Anders. Go check it out.
Oh.
Wait, where?
On Apple Music,
Oh.
Spotify, YouTube, Instagram.
Oh, shit.
I know. Yep. So I'm curious because we were listening to your podcast, that you did on, reactive versus interactive music.
Oh, yeah.
And you get into, it's a good point. You get into basically the idea that maybe consciousness, then it kind of has parallels with consciousness.
Right.
In that, are you just an algorithm going through the motion of free
Right.
will, basically?
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty interesting. So you seem to subscribe more to the fact that of what then?
I don't buy interactivity
Okay.
with...
Which would be, in this case, would that be free will or not
So
free
I
will?
basically don't believe in free will.
Okay.
And...
Because we are just a set of we're really just working as an algorithm.
So what I suspect is that we aren't really just algorithms. I suspect that there's more to it that we don't know, but I don't know. Is
Sure,
the thing.
sure.
It's not a statement.
Do you
of
suspect
belief.
that there's something we haven't found out, or it's just the level of complexity of the process?
It might be the level of complexity. I don't think that we're even close to modeling general intelligence.
Sure.
I think that there is an argument to be made for acting as if we do, because if you believe that we will get there, it has to be a belief at a certain point. Like, I have to believe that I'm interacting with you two and that you are listening to me and reacting to what I'm saying, and it could be anything.
Vice versa.
Do you believe that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely believe it.
Yeah.
Or it
Yeah.
seems as if it is that way.
Sure.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you have to start believing it at some point.
Right.
And so I understand the argument for programmers and people who are working on it now that they might as well start believing it now, because
Sure.
it has to start at some point, and we don't know when the lights will turn on, so to speak, or if they're already on.
So you just keep working at it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
However, it doesn't seem to me that we are even close to general intelligence. And so I talked to a friend of mine, Richard Savory. We go back and forth on this a lot. He does a lot of research into artificial intelligence in music at Georgia Tech University. Check him out, Richard Savory.
Is he in the direction of trying to see if, like, artificial intelligence can do what we're doing, or as sort of a supplement to what we're doing?
I think both
Okay.
in different ways.
Yeah.
So what I've talked to him about is sort of some ethics of artificial intelligence in music, and if you build a robot that improvises, you have to not only do what you want with it, but allow it to do what it wants.
Sure.
That's not an idea that makes any sense to me, because I don't believe it wants anything. Right. Anyway, but yeah, he's also working on a robot that scores films by watching the film, and it has various ways of understanding what's going on in the film and creating leitmotifs for different characters that it can recognize in various
It
ways.
recognizes characters.
Mhm.
Does it understand dialogue?
To a point.
Does it understand body language?
I don't know how it works specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I can't program in that sophisticated a way, but to a point.
Can
yes.
Richard Savory program
Well,
that
Yeah,
sophisticated?
yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
cool.
he's getting there, and he works with teams.
Well,
and
my
he puts
understanding of
together.
like most of the AI is that a lot of it is the black box.
Yeah, I mean, even for the programmers, because
Mm-hmm.
they'll make use of neural networks
Mhm.
and Markov chains and
Right.
things like that, where they're not 100% sure what the process is going on.
Right.
Okay.
But the thing is, once the output feels as if it isn't predetermined,
Sure.
you start to get a sense of interactivity, as long as it also doesn't feel random.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the balance. Because if it feels random, it doesn't really feel interactive.
Yeah.
And if
Right.
it feels like you can predict it every time, it also doesn't feel interactive.
Sure.
I think that's a good way to think about it, though, because we don't have a good measure of, consciousness. So, like,
Right.
Why not? Like you said that they said.
Right.
You might as well start believing it now.
Mhm.
One interesting thing one of my classes actually talked about. We had a lecture from an anesthesiologist who was talking about anesthesia,
Mhm.
and that's also a black box. We don't really understand the state that you go into when you are put out for like surgery or something. It's not quite sleep, but it's not quite
Right.
consciousness. And everybody also goes through these 4 stages called ether stages, where you have like pretty set things that happen to your body until you're finally ether stage 4 is death, but ether stage 3 is like where you want to be for surgery. The point being
Well-
is the point being is you. It was interesting because they were saying, hey, maybe if you understand anesthesia, you could understand consciousness too.
Sure.
Just kind of throwing that out there
Yeah.
for anybody who wants to go into that. But
Well, I don't understand either one.
yeah, but I mean, and that's the point
Yeah.
and that's why I almost think that, like,
Yeah.
saying it again, I think it's a good thing to say that, hey, we don't know, we can't really do gradations of consciousness that well. So
Right.
why not just, here's the threshold. I don't understand that it sounds random, so we'll call it consciousness.
Right.
And then also there's that theory in neuroscience where like or maybe it's not even a theory, it's just the idea that your brain is already like seconds ahead of
Right,
you before
right.
you even make
Yep,
a decision.
yep.
So then are you really making the decision?
Hmm.
So
Just because of how quickly the
yeah.
neurons fire.
Yeah, and your physical like body is not, you're not moving as quite as quickly as your brain is
So
computing.
even though it feels spontaneous to us, it's already
Yeah.
been decided
Yeah,
before we've done
I
it.
think Sam Harris talks about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. I like it. I
Yeah.
really like the idea that we don't have free will.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and the fact that we are maybe just a collection of algorithms that are recursive, and maybe just because there's
Right, exactly.
and it's just there's enough circles that it seems
It's just
random.
highly complex processing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it could be one. With trying to judge the consciousness of AI, I mean, like you're saying, we don't have this judge for humans. It's just that, like, we think we are, and you are like me, so you must be too. But our measure is really, like you're saying, it feels that way, right?
Right.
And so
It's just an assumption
the
that
block,
the other people
the
around
block
you are
with the AI is just that we can look at it and say, well, I know that's not a human.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
I'm going to scrutinize it more. But
I mean, is there really other? Everybody says the Turing test. Is there actually like a scheduled way or objective way of doing the Turing test, or is it just that like, oh,
it's like if you're
I feel
having,
like you're not
if you're having
You
do
can
it through
tell.
like a chat, right?
right,
Like,
but there's not really a prescribed way of determining that. It's just
No,
a feel.
it's a
Right,
feel,
but
yeah.
I think the power of it is that we all pass the Turing test for each other.
Oh, hang on. This is what we wanted to talk about, Anthony. I'm starting to think you might be an android. I heard that intro music.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
We hear how you're pronouncing your name.
Yes. Very peculiar. No.
Yeah. I think I
Way
saw a
I am.
meme that the best way to tell if you're a robot is to split your arm and
That's it, huh?
Oh yeah.
see the
Have a look
circuitry
inside.
inside.
Isn't this Westworld?
Yeah.
Shout
Well,
out to Westworld.
I didn't bring my Bowie knife, so I think we're gonna have to skip
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
for today's podcast.
Yeah. Well, we've been going for almost an hour.
Should we,
So do you want to play a little bit and then
Okay.
call it?
Get
Call
you
it?
guys.
What? Well, thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Anthony, thank
Yeah.
you for
Wait, did you get that in?
hosting.
What?
Me saying-
Thanks for watching. This is Erik Anderson, Mark Anderson. Check him out. Check
Anthony
out Duo Tandem.
Caulkins.
Yeah, right.
Duo Tandem,
Yeah.
Son of Anders,
Yeah.
Anthony Caulkins.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. As always, if you liked my content, please hit that like button below, leave a comment, subscribe, check out my other social media, and if you like my content generally, please consider visiting my Patreon and supporting.